What's a boomer opinion that you agree with? Story 1. Any business that requires you to use an app. I don't want to download an app, make an account, and remember the said password for the account, especially because the app doesn't even work a lot of the time, or is extremely convoluted with the front-end design. Yeah, I definitely noticed when McDonald's raised all their prices by 20 to 30% and then conveniently started offering deals for the same value on their app. Valid on one item, one per order, and can't be used in conjunction with their rewards. And unless you get the free item from the rewards, the lack of an option for a discount makes it so you are still likely paying the pre-price gouge rate in the end if you choose that route, same as the deals. Every concert ticket vendor now. I have several ticket apps for the same venue, but every booking agency uses a different ticket company. I have Ticketmaster, AXS, and Eventbrite off the top of my head, and they all require a login now instead of just sending my tickets via email PDF. I think this is a classic example of trying to fix something that isn't broken. Story 2. Social media is unhealthy and children shouldn't have unrestricted access to the internet. I think it depends on how they use it. It can be actually very handy and a useful tool if it doesn't take over your life. And for kids, it seems like a Pandora's box type of thing. They really shouldn't be on it, but not that they are. Preventing your kids from using it deprives them of a social aspect of everyday life that their friends get to enjoy, as much as it opens them up to unrealistic expectations, tech addiction, and cyberbullying. But yeah, access should be restricted. I don't think corn usage as a teen affected me much, but I definitely saw some beheadings by the age of 13 that stuck with me for a while. Definitely. I used to be bullied quite badly at school, and thankfully my parents were very anti-social media and reluctant to even let me have a phone until I was about 15 or 16. I'm in my early 20s. I don't even want to think about how much worse the bullying would have been if I had been accessing unrestricted social media at a young age. Social media is a lot more dangerous to kids than even some of the boomers realize. Story 3. Kids do great with totally unstructured outdoor play. They don't need an organized game or activity. If you take a bunch of kids to a park and keep an eye on them, they'll figure out stuff to do together, and often come up with creative and interesting things that adults wouldn't have thought of. Just keep them physically safe and let them run around and do kid stuff. You don't need to curate everything. Using your comment as a springboard to say, let kids be bored. Boredom breeds creativity and innovation. Making sure they have something to do every second of every day may reduce tantrums, but you are robbing that child of the ability to self-regulate, self-entertain, and come up with their own creative ideas. That is why I will never be okay with little kids being given tablets and unrestricted access to the internet. I think it's good to distract kids in times of anxiety and in situations like waiting rooms where there is little they can do to self-stimulate, but other times are opportunities for the kids to find out what they really like doing. I love this. My niece and nephew are older now, but when they were young, they only behaved with me. Everyone else gave them anything they wanted and stopped tantrums by giving it to the child. I gave them a talk every time they came into my house. I got on their level and I talked to them like an adult. Alright guys, you know the rules. No tantrums or you're going home. No junk food after 8. If we go to the store, you each have $5 to spend however you want. There will be no more. There will be no crying or we leave with nothing. Your uncle will cook whatever you want for the week and we'll have one fast food day. Bedtime is bedtime, and if you want to watch TV, you get 1 hour each. We have plenty of crafts you can do and toys you can play with. I'm a Gen X mom of a 6-year-old. Younger parents frequently ask about what camps he's in for summer and other school breaks, and ask about after school and Saturday camps during the school year. They don't seem to know how to react when I say he's never been to any camp. We love parks, playgrounds, and public schools. Sometimes we meet up with his friends, or he plays with kids he's never met before, or he plays by himself or just with us. He's doing great. The amount of parents I see trying to raise kids as if they were adults is mind-boggling. Kids need to play. Story 4. Concert ticket pricing is too high. Once you get in, a beer is $17. I'm Gen X and was talking to a 19-year-old at work and was shocked he'd never been to a concert, since I'd been to a lot of great concerts from 13 to 18. Then I realized just how absurdly priced they are. Sadly, they miss out. I don't know if this is just an area thing, but as long as you're not going to a stadium and or the headliner isn't a gigantic name like Taylor Swift, prices are pretty reasonable. I bought tickets to this festival for local indie indie bands to play. There were dozens of names on the lineup on several stages. It was $20. Also got to meet some of the artists who stuck around, which was really cool. Here in a week I'm going to check out some funky prog metal, and it's $35 including fees. I went to a 3-day punk festival a few years ago, and I think those were only $100. My music taste may be a bit more eccentric, but I feel like even if you don't love the music, maybe just an appreciation for the genre, experiencing live art is a worthwhile experience, especially at those prices. I've certainly spent more money on less fun. It has something to do with the way concerts are marketed now. You go there to experience a celebrity rather than enjoy their music live. Story 5. Built-in obsolescence is BS. We have 1000% become more of a throwaway society than fix it and keep it going society. I also firmly back the right to repair laws, especially when it comes to farmers. John Deere equipment is code locked, so even if a farmer had the knowledge and tools to fix it themselves, they still have to take it to an authorized John Deere center for repairs. I'm looking for a new car for the first time in over a decade. The more research I'm doing, I notice that pretty much all new cars have taken a nosedive in quality over the past couple of years, but somehow dealers are able to mark up like $10K over MSRP, and people are actually paying it. I remember our family having a '98 Camry that lasted well over 200,000 miles with only minor repairs. Now it looks like I'll be lucky to have a car to last $50K without scrapping it. A different side to that coin, throwing away food is so much worse than fixing it yourself food. Like, going to a restaurant and getting food made for you is one thing, but all the pre-packaged instant microwave foods are super bad to eat for every meal. Pizza rolls, frozen burritos, microwave dinners, I hate them. Like, they have their place when I'm at work and need food, or when I have absolutely zero time to cook, but damn me, I used to sit down for a family dinner that was just reheated on the stove. I get that not everyone has time to cook, but that's part of the problem in my opinion. Anything you can buy frozen, you can make for yourself, with a few exceptions. I haven't quite mastered pizza rolls, and it tastes better fresh. It tastes better reheated for work, and it's better for you. And I get it, I do. I am also broke. I can only really afford to cook with money, and time-wise maybe 2 or 3 times a week. The majority of what I've eaten for years now are quickie meals, but damn, I hate that it's become you have time to make food or time to sleep. You can't do both. For so many people, I hate that buying ingredients is so expensive up front. Like, yeah, you can use a spice for more than one meal, but when you're just starting off, you gotta buy new spices almost every time you cook. Same for all ingredients. It's so much easier to just get pre-made food from the store. I wish it didn't have to be. I wish I could choose not to cook instead of being required to cook so I can sleep for work. There are full households these days where not one person knows how to cook. Story 6. Parents who let their kids use tablets in public spaces with the volume all the way up, no headphones, and not doing it to stop an intimate tantrum. If they truly cannot get the kid out of that shared space for some reason, are trashy AF. Fight me. I work in a restaurant. There was a family of regulars that would come in and let their kids watch goddamn movies on the iPad the whole time. They'd leave a huge mess, were a pain to serve, all that. One day they were in, thankfully only 1 or 2 of the other tables were around. I was in the kitchen checking on an order and I heard a scream. Not an excited scream, not an oopsie scream, not a laughing scream, the kind of scream you make when witnessing a real murder. I naturally sprint from the kitchen to see the parents unconcerned, not really reacting at all. When they see the look on my face, they just shrug it off and say, "Oh, they always get scared at that part of the movie." I can't imagine what their experience as parents is like. And they have a bit of empathy for me for raising kids that exercise that kind of lung power with any regularity. That said, the moment they just let that go down in a public place, I truly came to hate them. Man, my kids are 4 and 5 and have tablets, but we don't take them with us to restaurants. It is more important to teach kids how to act in public spaces without the use of tablets for entertainment, and I am personally not a fan of electronic usage at the table, unless things are getting crazy and then I let them watch Disney on my phone. The tablets are mostly for road trips and more importantly so my husband and I can enjoy a NASCAR race each weekend. I will admit though that my kids would rather play outside or something, so they barely get used, and we deleted YouTube Kids because the kids were showing signs of becoming addicted to that weird stuff. iPads are raising an entire generation of zombies. I'm definitely with the boomers here. Story 7. Touchscreens in cars suck. I get a touchscreen to use a GPS interface or something, but radio and AC controls need to be physical buttons. That's the stuff I'm likely to mess up while driving. I can use physical buttons and dials without taking my eyes off the road, but everything being touch controls is distracting. The worst part about touchscreens for me is that it casts too much light into the cabin while driving at night. Some you can dim or turn off altogether, but many still have backlight as opposed to switching off completely. I'm assuming these engineers never drive these vehicles outside a city at night in a part of the world where moose and elk wander into the road. If they do, they just compensate by putting even brighter headlights in the vehicle so that you blind everyone else. Cool. I wonder if any studies have been done connecting car touchscreens use to increased accidents. Cockpits and freight train engines aren't one giant touchscreen for a reason. Tactility is extremely important to safety and user experience. It definitely can't be safe to have to find every button instead of just knowing it to the touch. Story 8. Movies, and some TV shows for that matter, are mixed idiotically these days. I don't appreciate having to crank the volume way up to hear whispered dialogue, only to have a music swell or explosion or something blow my head clean off. No amount of tweaking my sound system has fixed this. Gonna tag onto this movie thread with my addition here. The level of violence and nudity in movies and TV today is unnecessary. It's too much for me personally. We don't need to see every single detail of what's supposed to be happening. We get it. It's funny, I think that outside of the prestige TV space, movies aren't nearly as sexually explicit as they used to be. Seems like TV took over for it. As someone who prefers movies anyway, I'm not mad about it. I don't care about sex scenes anymore. Move on with the plot. Violence I can take or leave. John Wick 4 has a scene where a character has to pull their hand out from a knife as it's lodged through their hand and into a surface. This is an action movie, not a horror movie. I don't want to see the knife as it's coming out. You can easily imply it without showing it directly. Stuff like that is a bit annoying to me too. Same. I don't really care that much. Implication used to be a thing in TV shows before Netflix took over. Story 9. Manners. I agree that kids aren't taught them anymore like they should be. 8th grade teacher here, this is a serious problem that I have definitely sided with the boom booms on this one. Too many parents have actively made the decision to not uphold their end of the social contract. This one is mixed. Manners when it comes to respecting others are essential, but there are also tons of manners that either had a reason a long time ago that no longer applies, or that only ever existed out of classist prejudice. For example, having 14 different pieces of silverware for a single meal, all of which are meticulously placed. At the Walmart where I work, we have kids come in and just trash the place to their heart's content. One night we had some boys build a mini living room in the furniture section, and when our security guard came by to evict them, their response was, "I kid you not, took you long enough." Kids these days are taking advantage of leniency more than ever. I'm not sure there ever was a generation with good manners. We just notice bad manners more and more as we grow older. Story 10. Tips are being shoved down your throat at every transaction for everything. I tip well at bars and restaurants. I tip okay when picking up takeout, haircuts, etc. But I also have no issue pressing no tip for pretty much everything else. I think in 90% of cases, they weren't even expecting a tip. People will need to start joining me in this, or things will get out of hand. I don't mind throwing in a couple of bucks on a large takeout order, but the defaults on the iPad are basically the same as dining in with full table service, like 15 to 20%. It doesn't seem fair that someone putting stuff in a bag should get the same tip as someone checking on me multiple times over the course of an hour, refilling water, clearing plates, etc. If takeout deserves 18%, then dine-in should arguably be like 30%, but then that's really getting excessive. The thing is, not leaving a tip doesn't help the issue, because there's no downside to giving the option. I actually won't go back to places that have inappropriate tip screens because I assume it means they are trying to stop paying their workers, because that's the end goal of any tipped position, to eliminate the hourly wage. So I assume their views run counter to my own, and I don't frequent those places. That's what will have to happen to see any difference in the tip screens. There has to be a punishment for even trying it. Even self-service counters ask for tips now. It's getting ridiculous. Also, for me personally, if I eat in the restaurant, I tip 25 to 30%. If I get takeout, I will tip 5%. Those are just my rules, because I know that many of the tips get shared with the staff in the kitchen, at least in places I've worked that had tips. Story 11. In my opinion, it is so much more satisfying to read a physical book than an ebook. It's not reading a book that makes ebooks superior to paperbacks. It's carrying a book. I'm a fast reader. I went on vacation and wound up with 11 books in my carry-on that I had to lug all around the airport. Then a few months later, I moved 20 boxes of books down 3 flights of stairs into the moving truck, then up 2 more flights of stairs. I bought an e-reader about a week after that nonsense. I kept my first editions and my out-of-print books, but all the mass market stuff that's still in print, I sold or donated. Another nice thing about my Kindle is that I can borrow library books and have them go right to the Kindle. Reference books are better in print though. E-readers are also good for when you're on a journey and finish your book faster than you anticipated. One, that is harder to do when you can see the percentage remaining. I hate when the last chapter of a book is actually a taster chapter of another book by the same author, and you have much less of your actual book left to read than you thought. And 2, you can just flip to another book you have already downloaded or even buy a new one mid-journey and have it instantly. Also good for when you start a book but decide you're not really in the mood for it and can just select another. In ye olden days of print books only, I used to get the train to work and was really annoyed when any of these situations rendered me without a book for most of the journey. I'm kind of on the fence with this one. Story 12. Millennial here, I'm with the boomers on hating to create a new username and password for every service imaginable. If I can live without said service, it's enough to turn me away. Also not taking cash. Bought overpriced drinks at a concert. Cash was not accepted. Bottle drinks only. And they literally used a bottle opener to take the cap off and handed me a chip reader that asked for a tip. GTFO. My concert venue started doing cashless too. If you buy bottled water, they keep the cap because they don't want concert goers throwing them at the performers. I mean, you could throw pocket change at them to do worse. So I put my bottled water on the ground between sips. Then someone walked through the aisle and accidentally kicks it over and it spills everywhere. Asinine. No cash is so silly. Like I went to Publix when my parents were out of town a few months ago and brought like $40 to buy some junk food to snack on. Went to go to a self-checkout because obviously there are 4 self-checkouts but only 1 manned line, and it didn't take cash. So I had to take my armful of garbage and go to an actual human being and wait in line until I could finally get my dang food. And it's also permeated in the culture. In high school this past year, we'd be talking about gas prices and whatnot, and my friends could not wrap their minds around walking into the store and saying $20 on pump 3 and giving the dude a 20 because they all have cards. And at school, it'd be like donate your spare change. And I was the only one of the friend group that actually had cash money. Or I'd buy something cash for someone else, and they'd be like, what's your Venmo so I can repay you? I actually think there are benefits to a cashless society, but it's all just happening way too fast. Story 13. Kids should not have cell phones. Maybe a basic flip phone, sure as payphones have all but disappeared, but no kid should have a smartphone. Own things. Don't rent things. House, car, water tank, etc. Subscriptions suck. Not everything needs an internet connection. I was recently shopping for a washing machine. A washing machine does not need an internet connection and AI to clean my clothes. My dryer has an internet connection. The only thing it's good for is telling me the dryer finished its cycle. Can I turn it on again from my phone? Nope, not unless I pressed an additional button when I started drying, a button that cannot stay on all the time. If you're going to give me the ability to see that the dryer's finished, then at least give me the ability to turn it back on for a little bit more because I'm too lazy to get up and get them out of the dryer, but at the same time I don't want them to get wrinkled. New appliances just suck in general. I have a 20-year-old Speed Queen that is kind of loud sometimes but washes clothes just fine, and is a lot more reliable than my mom's newer washer. Heck, we'd probably be even able to fix something if it broke. Not everything needs to be fancy with tons of options. Sometimes simple is better. Futurism isn't as dystopian as I thought it would be, it's just downright boring. Story 14. Learn to write a professional email. The number of Gen Z kids I've had who send me emails without salutations with emojis and shorthand like LOL, OMG, etc. without proper spelling and punctuation is crazy. That's fine for texting or exchanges with people you're friends with, but it's not for the workplace. Generally true, and as an older millennial, I still remember doing a double take when I saw how some of the more recent interns/entry-level staff talk to supervisors over email. However, I would add that no one I work with has has worse grammar or sends more terse, punctuation-free emails than the 70-something CEO of the company. She loves emojis too. As an older millennial, close to Gen X, I feel the opposite way. I've been entirely sick of the dumbass professional email standard. Let it be the same as texting. This is someone I work with, who I socialize with normally, but when it comes to email, I need to act like it's somehow different. Ridiculous. I also hope that casual workwear spreads across all industries in the future for future generations. As long as work is done properly and effectively, people should be able to wear whatever they want, even pajamas. Working 50+ hours a week, comfort should come miles ahead of how someone looks. It's just a bit too tedious in my opinion. Story 15. TikTok is vapid garbage and a cancer on society. It's destroying people's attention spans, and people seem to need multiple forms of stimulation in order to not feel bored. People can't even sit through a movie without playing on their phone or play video games without also needing a podcast to stay entertained. I have a friend who's terminally depressed by their lot in life, and they use TikTok as pure escapism. I flame the platform from time to time talking with them, and they always fall back on, but I can tailor it to my taste, just to get rage baited by every other video the blog posts. Social media use is an addiction for a lot of people, and the soundbite rage bait format of TikTok is cancer. I'm not much better spending way too much time on Reddit, to be honest. Gen X here, the attention span downgrade accusations have been flying for at least 40 years. MTV was accused of this because music videos changed the camera perspective after only a second or two. I didn't think much of it as a teenager in the 1980s, but the trend for shorter and shorter media kind of proves the boomer were right about this. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, pick your flavor. It's all the same stuff in the end. Story 16. I think people tend to be too sensitive. Personal outrage shouldn't be so important. It's disheartening to see so many people whine and cry and fight over inconsequential nonsense, while pressing issues remain unaddressed. Agree. And in the same vein, I don't think every bad or not good thing to ever happen to you is trauma. No, you aren't traumatized because you dropped your ice cream as a kid or whatever. I do think there is a wide gray area that can be debated. But overall, I think most people are all right. There's a weird obsession with being the most sad/depressed/broken person, and I am not for it. The issue here is who gets to decide what issues are pressing and which are inconsequential nonsense. I suspect the answer would differ quite a bit depending on who is talking. This is definitely a bit of a gray area. Story 17. Look with your eyes, not with your hands. Saw this grown woman pick up a sculpture that was nearly $200 at the art fair the other day. If you aren't gonna buy it, don't touch it. As a collector of many, many things, comics, games, figures, toys, etc., picking up something is integral to determining the condition and whether or not you want to buy it, or trying to see exactly what something is. For example, the label for the Japanese version of Tetris for the Game Boy has two variations, with very minute differences but leading to entirely different versions of the game with different music. You can't see those differences from afar. There was this antique show on television I like to watch. The thing that pissed me off so much about the show is when some piece of antique would get special attention and the presenter would pick it up. I yelled at the TV. I couldn't stand that woman. That would drive me crazy. Sounds like one of those things that sucks to witness, but you can't stop watching it. Story 18. Keep control of your children. I'm not referring to crying or public tantrums. Hell, sometimes I want to cry in public. I'm talking about parents who let their children wander free range in public. Like, dude, your 2-year-old is trying to step off the curb. Hello? My husband and I took our first camping trip a couple of weeks ago, and the people in the site next to us let their young kids run all over the campground. At one point, a child, who couldn't have been older than 6, ran through our site and was just walking around our setup. The kid wasn't rude or anything, just playing, and probably didn't even realize he shouldn't be in our area. But what drives me mad is how the parents didn't care at all. This kid was behind the side of our 27-foot camper and was completely out of the parents' sight. Some people have no perception of danger or just have too much faith in humanity. We don't have kids, but the last thing I'd ever do is take my eyes off of my kids in the middle of a forest surrounded by strangers. It blows my mind. I feel this, especially with the new trend I am seeing of parents meeting up at at breweries and letting their kids just run wild. I homebrew and hence love checking out the new recipes from the breweries in my area. What I don't like is trying to enjoy my beer and the same snotty kid keeps running up to my table every 5 minutes, or trying to find a table to sit, and when I see one, some parents are like, that's our kid's table? Well, Karen, your kids are running around and me and my friend need to sit. I get parents want to relax and have a beer together like old times, but I don't know, maybe get a babysitter first? I don't know, I think boomers were also pretty keen on letting their kids loose. Story 19. Recently, it has occurred to me that those people who are saying you could buy a house if you stopped buying so much Starbucks, etc., are annoying, but they're not wrong. I took a close look at how much money I was spending on little incidental stuff like coffee, snacks, takeout for lunch or dinner, and I was astonished. If I had been saving that money for the last 2 years, I would have over $10,000 in the bank right now. I'm not saying if you have $10,000 you can buy a house. I'm using my own careless overspending as an example of how much money you can save by cutting back on those little expenses over time. It wasn't meant to be the exact amount of time and money required to purchase a home. I'm also not saying that we all should stop enjoying things, and I don't think that's ever what the boomer argument was. It just means that if you cut back on those little expenses that add up and put money away instead, you can have enough money for a down payment in a few years. If you feel attacked by this, maybe it's time to use a paper check register and track your spending to see how much money you could save. Even if you're not trying to buy a house, you could save for a wedding or a vacation or whatever it is you think you can't afford right now. I had this exact conversation with my wife around age 25. Couldn't stand watching her waste all of her money. Her argument was always that little purchases didn't matter, but when budgeting, it's the little purchases that matter the most. Take that $7 daily Starbucks and a $10 pack of cigarettes and the $3 tea you buy at the gas station on your way home from work and multiply that number by 365. Earning $100,000 annually, that would be 10% of your net salary. Shocking, and she was earning less than half of that. But we reined it in and cooled down her little purchases, did a complete 180. We're able to save up $50K in a couple of years from $0 savings, budgeting like crazy, and bought our first house at 27. I had a roommate in college whose family moved to the US from Pakistan sometime in the mid-80s when he was a little kid. His story was that his mom, dad, and older brother worked like crazy, driving cabs, cleaning houses, and anything they could find. He and his younger siblings babysat and did paper routes and cash jobs kids could do. The whole family kept pooling their money until they bought their own house with cash in Queens, New York. Inflation has hit hard since then, but it's still motivational what they were able to do. I can't even begin to explain how much more normalized it is to spend money on useless luxury stuff nowadays. It didn't used to be like this. Story 20. As somebody who spent years doing it, the art of customer service has completely gone out the window. Talking about a cashier, swiping your credit card, and then ending a transaction by staring at you blankly, or an entire staff taking 5 minutes to even acknowledge your existence upon entering a store, etc. Your job is not your dream, but it actually can feel more rewarding if you don't just zombie your way through it. I mean, I do think people should offer good customer service. However, I can't imagine trying to be super helpful and cheerful while working my tail off for $7.25 an hour, and barely making rent, with no health insurance because it's too expensive, with possibly an awful manager treating me like garbage. I don't get too mad if they aren't being outright rude or disrespectful. If we paid a living wage as a society, we could expect more. If customers weren't a horror show to deal with on a daily basis, I would agree, but people suck. And I'm not going to pretend longer than I need to that they're not destroying my soul by inches in front of them. Granted, I'm not in customer service anymore, but I still firmly believe that all consumers should learn to be more courteous and respectful of the poor drones who have to deal with them every day. I agree. I work in food service and I can definitely fake it most days. However, there are customers who make me want to reach over and strangle them. Some people can be so rude or clueless or come in 2 minutes before we close and expect a fine dining experience. Like, sorry, but I'm tired and hungry and I want to go home. Unfortunately, I now have to spend the next hour cleaning this place. I'm done faking being nice, Larry. As an introvert, too many people give me anxiety after some time. Give good customer service to those who deserve it. Story 21. Self-checkouts. I don't get paid to scan my items. I will shop for an hour, and if I get to the register and it's only a self-checkout, or there are only a handful of clerks with more empty registers than working registers, I will leave my cart and spend my money elsewhere. I demand more respect and better customer service to receive my money. If you can't hire someone to check me out, you will be paying someone to put my items back. Simple. It's annoying how most places only have 2 actual registers open at any given time. The expectation is that people will just use self-checkout. I'm sorry, but I'm not getting paid to scan and bag my groceries. Using self-checkout just makes me feel like I'm taking away a job someone else could do just to save Walmart a few bucks. F that. It's also super easy to accidentally forget to pay for items at self-checkout. Old people love shoplifting. This could be a match made in heaven. Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to these that you would like to share with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and don't forget to subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again and see you next time.